type pathways of energy and stuff like that. And she's going to give me a cue, and we'll start. And oh, I know, I wanted to get something. Wait a minute. Yeah, honey. Yeah. Okay. What? When? Now? Okay. Tell me when. So I should start. I'm going to start because she thinks I should, and so I'm going to start. And welcome very much to Conversations. We're now on the air. We've been talking quite a while, setting up the graphics and so forth. And we're talking to one of our favorite friends, that's Clinton Ignatov, who goes by the title Clinton the Geek. I'm going to ask him why Clinton the Geek, but we'll get into that after a while. But he's a brilliant young man, if I may say so, and he's very, very invested, autodidactically invested in understanding the implications of all the extended communications technologies that has led to conscious attention. And he's just been accepted, if I may just let the cat out of the bag, his paper has been accepted to a conference that's coming up in a couple of months where some of the leading people across the world, I guess, who are really interested in the integrated understanding of the implications of the current situation from a media perspective in terms of the human condition. He's been accepted to read a paper which I tried to read last night, and I really did. I got out dictionaries and everything, and I was kind of able to follow this young man's brilliant explication of what happened in the wake of all of Mr. McLuhan's exhortations that we come to understand the electronic media. I congratulate you on that, and on being accepted in the for participation in that conference. And so good to see you again, Clinton. Welcome to New York City, and particularly to Conversations with Channer.
It's a pleasure to be here, Harold. Thank you very much.
Well said. Sign this man up. I think he's somebody that we can put, on the camera in a regular way. No, tell us a little bit about this conference, if you would, and congratulations. The paper is brilliant that I read, and I congratulate you on that. But tell me a little bit about where things are. We've done a couple of programs in the past. Maybe address the fact of this conference, if you would, please.
Very good. So the Media Ecology Association was founded in 1998 by a group of students of media ecologist Neil Postman.
Yeah, Neil Postman, yeah.
Yeah, he's the author of Amusing Ourselves to Death, and he is one of the founders of the whole field of media ecology, who's off-center is Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian guy who I've just been nerding out about in the last couple years. So the Media Ecology Association is having its 20th annual convention in Toronto at the University of Toronto on June 26th through to the 30th. And you can find out more about the Media Ecology Association's convention at mediaethics.ca.
Ethics?
Mediaethics.ca. That's the website. I wrote a paper, and it was sort of I pounded it out sort of in a hurry, and I sent it off, and I was really thrilled to get accepted. And so that just means I'll be on a panel giving a presentation. That there'll be a great many panels and a great many presentations from people around the world. So my paper, which you said you read last night, Harold.
I did. I read the whole thing. It took me about 5 hours, and I was trying to get the big dictionary and the syntax dictionary, and it's hard to follow a brilliant mind, and you have a brilliant mind, and you actually know what you're talking about in great depth of understanding. And I got it really in over my head a lot of the time, but I read the whole thing, and I sort of understand things the way you do. You've laid out a great deal of understanding Mr. McLuhan, for one thing, and his way of seeing the media, and also something that the broader world is very, very, very interested in now is the implications of all this exponential increasing communications capability that is so roiling the world now. And there are other examples of it, but this conference is an early one. And just one other mention is Paul Levinson, who is a friend of you and me. He's a member of that coterie. And they're not just all cyberneticists or something. There are people who are anthropologists, and they're very much systems thinking, and it's a 20-year thing. And congratulations on being accepted to read your paper. And,
thank you.
And thank you for introducing me to it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Paul Levinson was one of the founding members of the Media Ecology Association, along with Lance Strait. This all came out of Fordham University, which I understand is right around the block, just down the street from you there at Manhattan Neighborhood Network. It's a small world. Well, see, I've been reading a bunch of McLuhan, just throwing stuff on the internet in a rather haphazard fashion, because I'm not in academia, so I was just kind of throwing it out there, and I wasn't really sure what it was worth or anything. Your praise, I can't get enough of it. Thank you. But this is my first actual serious attempt at doing something in a more in a way, to the right people. The Media Ecology Association is the right people, the people who I want to actually be talking to. So this is just great.
Wonderful.
The paper is called A McLuhan Syntonic Approach to Computer Literacy, Toppling the Pillars of Cyberspace. So it's available on my website right now, which is
we could
still...
have made it available here, but we could do it maybe on another occasion or something if you want. You've got got a clip that you've done, and I've seen it and everything. But
that's something else entirely, yeah. But it's another side project of mine. That's the thing. I've got all these little side projects bubbling on. It's like a hobby, but I'd really like to develop into something more. This paper is basically, I tried to create an actual computer literate formal explanation of cyberspace.
Right.
Because cyberspace is a word which was really huge in the 80s and 90s, and it's sort of become passé, or but at the time, this whole idea of the space behind the screen being an actual space you go into, it's all very sci-fi, fantasy, Alice through the Looking Glass sort of fiction. So I tried to create a really rigorous, formal way of saying, all right, here's the invention of computer file systems out of hard drives and persistent storage and floppy disks, which what I did was I erected and then tore down the 3 pillars of cyberspace. So you can check that out on my website, clinton.com.
Yeah.
But
why do you call yourself? Oh, you're a netizen. You're a citizen of the net. Is that what that stands for?
I think.
That's clever. Did you make that up, or is that a generalized term?
I wish I made that up. So your first question there.
Clinton, you're a young man coming along. Have you got adequate counsel to get all your copyrights lined up as you enter this new realm? You know what I'm saying?
Insofar
has the term netizen been stolen from you yet now to somebody who made millions of dollars off it or something in that business,
Unfortunately, I have no one to sue for my millions of dollars. No, if I
that's a funny sentence. I got no one to sue for my millions of dollars. Yeah. Okay. No, I'm sorry. That was
I'm a SOCAN member for what that's worth.
That was what they try to call to be a joke. Okay, and everything.
I know.
But it's a good term, netizens, like citizen, right? And
it's
precisely. And you are what would be called an autodidact, I think.
Oh, sure. I chase books down.
On your own territory, on your own initiative.
It's not, and it's not so rare a thing nowadays in the age with everyone's got questions to ask and information at their fingertips. Really, I think the massive availability of information and the ability to communicate with people, that's within cyberspace, the way people are chasing after their preoccupations, which is what I have done with McLuhan. It drove me half crazy, and I think that's one of the effects of cyberspace itself, which is why I tried to actually formalize it in a way which grounds it in the material reality of our communications infrastructure and computing as a physical activity.
Yeah,
right?
But it's a very important contribution, and I think you're on really good ground with Mr. McLuhan. He was a scholar of high repute. He incidentally was at Fordham University. I think he was at Fordham here when he was here.
Yes, he did have a time as a guest lecturer at Fordham. Yeah.
I'm sorry to report, Paul Ryan. Was Paul or you ever in touch with Paul Ryan? Paul Ryan was his adjunct or something when he was here in New York City, and Mr. McLuhan was the most famous name across the continent almost as an intellectual where people are trying to understand in large issues, particular systems thinking and so forth, the implications of the alphabet and of literacy. And I think he was a critic of it in a certain sense, that is Mr. McLuhan. And it was also an era of another great thinker of that time that was still with us in memory and in the work, Marshall Buckminster Fuller. Those two were very, very courant is the right term for the intellectual community along about 1970 or so and everything. And okay, anyway, yeah. So, and those people are being celebrated, and that kind of thinking is being celebrated by this conference, which I think is magnificent. You have a wide range of people. It's not all specialized.
Yes,
I think Mr. McLuhan thought that the alphabet was a one thing at a time specialization creation in human consciousness that he thought was going to be heavily challenged by a systems understanding by the electronic media coming along. If I'm maybe close to what he was about.
No, yes, that's it precisely. By constant exposure to linear type would train your senses. It would train your senses to take in the world and perceive the world pre-consciously in a more formalized, structured way, right? He said it created, Cartesian space and along with perspective in painting. So thanks to doing lots of reading, artists could start painting in 3D perspective. They were able to, formalize a way to have depth perception and whatnot, the way to formalize machines, right? The way that manufacturing involved standardized parts, and then we had the mass production of the Ford assembly line and whatnot. Just it's because people's brains, thanks to growing up reading at a young age, were more prone to linear thinking.
Thinking, right? Exactly. Does that
right?
Is there an equation between linear thinking and specialization in terms of intellectual curiosity?
Yes, because if you're going to think of a system, which is,
I think,
yes,
and certainly Fuller was,
Right. If you're going to think of a system as a closed system, something that plays by logical rules, then it's going to be like you bite off a part of reality and you formalize that, but you can't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah, or it's led to extreme. In the academic world, to extreme specialization, not only in the academic world, but I think this conference you're going to will include a lot of people in the academic world, but also people in the business world and in the intellectual community at large. But the movement toward high specialization came to be rewarded by the educational system, that you got people very specialized out on something, and the assumption was that you had to be specialized in some particular thing rather than systems thinking, which is the way I think that he was favored. I think he liked James Joyce, didn't he?
Yes, what McLuhan liked about James Joyce was that in his prose, Joyce was able to use so very many metaphors and rhymes to evoke multiple meanings all in one line. All of his lines were textured, and so they brought you into a multi-sensorous way, which evoked the other sort of thinking, acoustic thinking or tribal thinking, which is a more of a immediate, direct connection. Your senses are more directly connected to the outside world and not mediated through the structure of logical thinking, which was inculcated by typography.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and they had certain rules too. Yeah.
Yeah, so Joyce was able to write in a way which was very the opposite of what typographical and formalized writing usually is.
Right.
Joyce wrote tribally. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and that was very much in the air then, and also I guess it still is, and the implications of it. I wonder if could you share with us? Maybe it's not fair because you got this conference. I want to let the audience be aware of that and make sure we'll put some graphics up at the end, and here we can maybe let them at the minimum. Maybe we could let them have a website or something that they might do well to go, because people watching this program would be taking interest in intellectual things. But is there a website for the people who put that conference together that you could just make available right now out of your...
Yes, if you want to learn more about the Media Ecology Association's conference in Toronto, coming up at the end of June, go to mediaethics.ca. That's mediaethics.ca.
Dot what?
CA. That's the that's websites in Canada and in .ca.
BA. What is that? BA.
Charlie Alpha.
Huh?
Charlie Alpha. Harold.
Oh, CA.
Yes.
CA. Oh, I see. Oh. I see. And the people and so forth. I've got that printed out, and it was really an interesting array of people. I'm wondering, there's a great deal of interest in trying to understand things comprehensively, particularly a lot of attention now given over to the implications of the media, because so much of the roiling of the world in all dimensions is coming from these cyber developments that are coming along.
Right.
Are there? Let me just say something to get it out of the way. In a sense, this this organization. Are there many of these kind of organizations that are allowing for comprehensive understanding? Mr. McLuhan would be interested in comprehensive thing rather than specialization. And certainly, are there things going on in the West Coast? Are there things coming up in the Northwest, in other countries, where the implications of the technological development of communications media is being called and seriously considered by groups around the world? And what are some of them you might be aware of, or aware of where we could go to begin maybe to get in touch with some of the people that are in that mode of thinking, even because that's some of our major intellectuals are interested in the implications of that.
I haven't. I'm not sure. There are doubtless there are countless organizations, no doubt, which are interested in media. You're going to find conferences about social media. You're going to find conferences about just YouTube and YouTube developers. There's going to be there's lots of stuff. I got no more information off the top of my head, though.
Okay, that's
this
fair
is the
enough.
conference
Fair enough. It's something that can be got at and so forth. And one of the things in academia, let's just say, there would be a lot of people in academia, and people are encouraged to try and get education either in a high school or into a junior college or get a degree. And one of the things that they would encourage all people to get education is that's going to prepare them for participating effectively and positively in the economic order, in terms of being able to find a position where they can have recompense for their work and their attention, called a job or whatever. There's a great deal of attention in that realm of social organization by the population at large. But particularly
if you go to
the intellectual
school,
looking at it comprehensively.
Okay, sure. Yes. The thing is, if you want to go to school, make sure you get an education in something that's going to get you a job at the end of the day.
Well, that's what people are encouraged to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So cyberspace. The thing about cyberspace is that people can go get an education in whatever they want
Thank you very much. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Now, getting accreditation, getting a certificate at the end of the day for it, getting tested, and actually being able to prove, that you know something or other is a much different matter. I think in the future there's going to be changes in education where you're going to be able to pay just to take the exam and get the diploma at the end when you did all the studying all on your own for free, right? That's probably where things are headed.
Why would you want to get you'd want to get the diploma because then you could get a job that will get you money
well, you need
recognition.
Yes, if you're gonna, anybody can claim to be anything, but having accreditation, having a credit or whatever, or even just having credits which count towards something provided by a university might be more likely and better to everyone's best interest. Like, listen, I want universities to be on the leading edge of thinking and research and creating. We have these institutions all ready to go to do stuff, and at the same time, everyone can go. There's lots of people who feel like they're better off without them, right? Or who don't feel welcome, or who think that they can just study on their own and don't need universities, right? I'm not sure how it's all going to play out in the long run. It's very interesting, but there's But whether or not you're given a curriculum or whether you pursue your own interests, all these things can be done either on the venue of research on the internet or through attending a traditional institution of education.
Right.
But the full experience of the university education, I think, is worthwhile, or the college education. There's so much more you can get in, sitting with a whole bunch of people who are all together, interested in the same thing as you are, in the same room with experts at your fingertips, right? Like there's so much value in that.
I'd like to address that a little bit. The experts become expert into a degree. It's proposed that they become expert on something specific. Specialization is much encouraged in the educational process, and what that does is it leads people to become very divided into various areas that they know a great deal about, but they become specialized and are having a difficult time integrating their special thing with the broader context in which the human society is evolving, called systems thinking.
That's a very general
claim. Much of the intellectual leadership are people who are interested in the systems thinking of many things rather than specialization. But specialization is a way toward weeding out the people who are going to be worthy of having a job at some place that's going to be able to deal with one aspect of an economic process that can gain profit for the people who put it together.
Yeah, as a general claim, it's no doubt truer for some areas than others. We have what's called interdisciplinary studies.
Some, not as much as we might. This conference is very interdisciplinary, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and media studies is, I think.
Oh, certainly. And I mean, what I find interesting about media studies is just the way that media has grown out of all these traditional fields, right? Cinema, television, right? Music and radio performance and advertising and all these different things, which all blend together and intersect in strange, new, unprecedented ways on the internet and on your smartphone that no one's ever really seen before. So if you're going to look, it's a sort of forced interdisciplinary study just to try to study modern media because you have to handle multimedia. You have to handle all of it, more or less, right?
Well, I'm not sure people handle multimedia. They will be better at handling the details within their discipline than they are at having somebody come along questioning them, maybe, or bringing up some sort of an aspect that something doesn't occur from another thing that they don't know about because they're going into territory they're not familiar with, and they'd rather just stick with what they know. It's called specialization. It's very much favored in the educational curriculum of the university system that we have.
Well, if you have to master one thing, you better know it well, and you'll be a specialist in that. But nevertheless, regardless of that aspect, everyone has the cheat sheets and the Cole's Notes version of every other specialty out there that they can go cheat on and get the gist of. We all have instant exposure to all the other specialties too, so it's not like these specialists are totally clueless about any other field. Everyone has got a half-baked opinion on absolutely every specialization that everyone else has. People have 27 thumbs jammed in everyone else's pie already. So I'm not worried about specialization creating a massive schism between communication between people. No, not anymore. Not in the way you're describing.
What about in the world in general? I mean,
I think if there's going to be barriers between people, it'll be ideological. It'll be linguistic, language. I think it would make more sense to look at the English-speaking world compared to other languages in the world as borders rather than geographic or national borders, more or less, if you want to know how people are being compartmentalized or separated from one another.
The nationalism is an expression of specialization.
Well, it's an expression
compared to the great number of nations and variety of culture in the world.
Yeah, well, people sharing a geographic vicinity where they vote for rules they vote for the government and the regulations pertaining to their geographic vicinity are going to have an identity, but then you have cosmopolitan city centers where you have all the rich mixtures of and exposure to the variety of the planet. So like there's balances there. But when it comes to language, I can either speak to you or I can't, and then there's how well you speak a language, like all of these things. These are what come between each people, right?
I've done some thinking about and some contact with people, and what do you think is I know they've got machines now where you can go from Spanish, it comes out in English, and that kind of thing.
Oh, sure.
But what about the attention given, because we have about, 7,000 languages in the world, I think, something like that. And a lot of the lesser ones are being eliminated, are being lost. And there are people who consider trying to save those other languages as part of a cultural heritage and so forth. And why isn't there some work being done for there to be a process by which the 7,000 languages could be cyberly connected to where, let's just say you've got a program coming out. I put up a great approval along with my friend Nat Burns, here, and for the program that the BBC is doing now, the series they're doing on the planet. It's staggering visualization of the process of the world. But it's all coming out in English. And that's a thing that I think Mr. McLuhan was a little bit alarmed about, that because it's coming out in English. And why aren't there steps being taken with all the research capability and new capability of the exponentially increasing capability to manipulate information, to have the language of a visual image coming out in the languages of the world, so that you could put the education. It isn't only limited to people who can understand English. It could be understood in all the languages of the world, and you could be educating the population of the world to the highest standards by a process like that. And is there anything going on to being able to make media that can come out in all the languages of the world and bring that kind of media understanding and education to all peoples of the world rather than a select few?
Harold, if the BBC's Planet Earth documentary is not available in 37 languages right now, then I would eat my hat. It is being done.
There's 7,000 languages. We're losing too many
at least. Yes, everything gets translated into absolutely everything else all the time. The international market, the global market demands everything be translated all over the place. Everything. Every movie you buy has got 6 languages on it you can pick from. They got voice actors in every country. dubbing over the voice. You can watch The Simpsons in Vietnamese, and you can, like all of it. So it's done.
Oh,
it's
okay.
already,
Well, then maybe
right?
there's much more going on in that realm that I wasn't aware of. It seems to me
so
we're
that
leaving...
happens. Well, now what you're saying is you want computers to do it automatically.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
there's
yeah.
something. You're hitting on very interesting points here because right now there
Bring
are
them in on it. Yeah. Rather than leaving them not able to understand what.
Oh, sure. People
I mean, they can see, but the voice is something that is addressable by algorithms or something.
No, you don't need algorithms. You just need a translator. They need jobs too. Here's the thing. You got English-speaking fans of Japanese culture. Let's say anime fans, right? So for the last 20 years, 30 years, there's been a huge market in America and in Canada for television shows or comic books from Japan, right? And so there was underground communities. They were so hungry for it that it was just people translating themselves, bootlegged, and sharing them around.
Yeah.
And then they started selling them here with professional translations. And now there's some controversies that I see on the internet where the people translating the media from Japan into English are changing it and adjusting it and doing the translations wrong so as to make them more sensitive to our Western sensibilities, and they're taking
that would be part of a sales pitch. That would be part of a sales pitch.
But then the people in English,
the economics of that are not there for the less advantaged people generally. It's only
the people
for the
who wanted to learn about
making up a potential market that will drive the system to do that. It's all driven by market principles of profit. Now, that may be okay.
Well, in this
a
instance,
lot of the expansion of culture around the world has been at the area of what they used to call the national interest of a particular group of people. That included language and so forth and everything. But it's the disadvantaged people of the world that are, in a certain sense, left out of that process. It seems to me, It'll get to and it's not adequately there in terms of a general understanding. Also, just in a certain sense, I think McLuhan, if I'm not mistaken, had a great feeling or the inevitability of a cyber or a mediated world rather than just a print-oriented alpha-based system of communication that has been the way in which the world is communicated inside the nation and around the world and everything. And there should be a way of being able to get over that kind of treatment of language in a way using instantaneous capability for there to be interaction at a level so that you could have multimedia rather than print. I think the print gives linear thinking, one thing at a time. It informs a process of thinking specialization, one thing at a time. It's a historical pattern of intellectual endeavor and so forth that is held over by a lot of our universities and so forth. But the multimedia presentations that are coming available are now becoming a major source to contain the store of human knowledge in multimedia terms rather than alphanumeric.
Well,
I don't know
Harold,
if that's something that's going on. Rather than having it written, it will be done in multimedia to much better effect in terms of the way the world really works.
I would see that as
they still depend upon written.
That would be catastrophic. I in no way want in any way to extinguish literacy, the spoken word, or alphabets in favor of some sort of all at once form of multimedia sensuous communication. I think that would be an absolute abomination. It would
okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry not to use such strong terms, but no, the ability for us to consider things one part at a time and structure them logically and look at them as a whole and step outside of them and abstract.
That's a thought.
That is what consciousness is as a human being.
Well, that's certainly a thought that people have. People have that thought.
We are humans. We think in linear terms, one thing at a time,
yeah,
right?
But we think in linear terms maybe more than we ought to.
Well, yes,
nationalism is very, very narrowing. It's a very narrowing thing.
You got to balance order and chaos, right? Too much order, too much structure, like you're saying, it can be extinguishing and totalitarian and overwhelming. But too much, raw, sensuous, like involvement and in a multimedia experience, you can't fight it, you can't resist it, you can't step outside of it and say, hey, wait a minute, am I being brainwashed, or am I being shown something like that, right? Like, I don't know.
Well,
I think
that I suppose that'll be I would think that must be an issue that comes up at the conference by some people there, particularly maybe some people from the lesser well-known nations of the world who are being largely overlooked by all the political decision-making, which is overwhelmingly oriented toward the rich people of the world, as it always has been. Now, we don't want to bother bringing them in on it. They don't, what I'm trying to say is there could be you wouldn't have to, they could experience the way people are going to, it's going to be experienced multisensorially and multimedia-wise anyway.
Right. I can paint you the particulars
rather than musty old books in a stack. Do they still have stacks?
First of all, I love musty old books. I don't know why you're knocking on musty old books. The thing is,
they have a
we can talk about the particulars. We can talk about the particulars here.
Yeah.
We don't need to speak in these general terms about multimedia or whatever. What people are going to do 5 years from now is they're going to be walking around using their phone as a window on what they're looking at. And when they look through the phone, they're going to have things overlaid on reality. So everything in front of them on the street is going to have a little floating tag, or all the restaurants on the street are going to have little stars, or 3 stars out of 5, 5 stars out of 5, and all this, right? It's called augmented reality, AR, augmented reality.
Well, that could a beautiful thing for all the marketers of the world. God,
right.
You could just have all kinds of ways of marketing everything. That's the sort of mindset that operates the world,
And the benefit is going to be, just like you said, you're going to be able to point it at the Chinese food restaurant, and it'll all be, all the bits that are written in Chinese will be rendered in English for you to read, or you're going to be able to point it at a newspaper written in French, and it'll all be automatically translated.
I personally think, you may be right, but I think that gets in the way. All that literature gets in the way of there just being a well-done version of addition to what's being displayed in terms of the store of human knowledge.
I don't know about
it wouldn't have to be on a little cell phone. It could be on a wall with high definition and a way in which it's going that way, an immersive environment in which the store of human knowledge could be displayed. It might be in a way, and then if you have the language coming out in Ethiopian or in Swahili or in some of the languages that isn't getting through, they would be able to be brought into without going through all that literature of reading or listening to a language they don't know. It's coming out in their language. They could be brought into the knowledge much more rapidly if you got rid of that alphabet. Now, the alphabet is a grounding thing
for
the history.
No, that's a terrible idea.
Okay.
No, listen, the knowledge is out there, but it's not in me until I've learned it, and I can't learn it all at once. I don't want to be beamed into my head all at once. What I want to be immersed in is another person's face.
Yeah.
I want empathy. I want love between individuals in the face-to-face, immediately, co-present, no screens between them. If I'm going to be immersed and enraptured and non-logical, it's going to be in empathy and love with fellow humanity.
You think you can do that?
As far as knowledge of the world goes, I want to be as detached and away from that, and words are great, and indexes are great, and you don't want knowledge to come at you in some way that it possesses you. You want knowledge to be something you can put down and pick up.
You may be right. I think probably
contrast and compare.
The store of rational, politically correct thinking is in that regard. Certainly, they want to undergird all the systems by which the nations of the world have developed special interests, and it's all based upon commercial interest of something that makes it possible to retain the old way. But why not just have it coming out, in a way where the exchange is just language back and forth?
Every media ecology lecture, every lecture on media ecology begins with Plato and Phaedrus. And well, the long and short of it is Plato disagrees that the written word, the alphabet, will make people smarter because they'll just have to remember less, and they'll just have it written down, and they won't have to remember anything. They'll be done because everything they need to know is written down, right? Instead of carrying knowledge around inside of them, they just know that it's out there and they can pick it up when they want. But they're dumber for it. They've externalized their memory and thus don't remember anything, which is what the internet does to people. They stop learning stuff because they know that they can remember it again if they have to, if they just pick it up and look it up on Wikipedia. So I want to know how your multimedia knowledge of the world is any different than writing in that regard.
Well, I don't know. Let's take an example of something. Let's say, okay, if you would, let's say we're standing on a headland in Hawaii or something, and we want to convey the beauty of it. The kangaroo jumped away, and then there came a tiger that's not supposed to be there, and there's all kind of little drama going on and all of that. And we could do that, and we had poets who can do that and put down great works of art, Once upon a midnight dreary as I pondered, weak and weary, and so forth, our poets and our literature and everything. And that would be, and there would be a thing that would express, one sentence would express that the clouds were billowing and the ocean was green and this and that and all of that kind of stuff, all of which in reality would be conveyed in one moment. Wouldn't have to be breaking it all down into its component parts. Breaking it down into the component parts is good for marketing. It's a marketing ploy, the alphabet. And it's a sacred thing because that's where all our sacred books are. But it probably, I think, gets in the way of what's going to be able to become available is instantaneous translation into the languages of all the world's material.
Well,
the way that you do when you go through the world, or when you communicate with someone, you don't have a bunch of words getting in between it in your mediation. You have a direct communication, like you do. Now, that's fine for people in English, or people who speak the same language of bookkeeping or something, But in terms of the social order that is now becoming available to us, I think we would have the ability, rather than building another atomic bomb or some damn thing, in order to have who's intimidating who with blowing up the world and all the rest of the politics we've inherited and all of that kind of stuff, we would have a world where everybody can communicate, and everybody can be brought into it and see that landscape in their own language because the thing is brought to them in the visual. They can see. Everybody can see what's there.
Okay, well, in that case, how does cinema fall short of what you're dreaming?
Cinema is a step in that direction. But the store of human knowledge is now where? A Library of Congress, our legal systems, all of those kind of things are all written down. The writing is very, very dependent upon the way the system has been established. It's only been a couple of years we had anything other than writing for trying to keep track of anything. And maybe we're getting over that.
How much of human knowledge is something so beautiful that it is best represented in the form that you speak, and how much of it is plumbing and refrigerator repair?
Something thinks an accounting sheet is beautiful. Somebody who's an actuary or something, or all that.
Yeah, and so the words aren't impeding that.
Well, okay, I don't think it's going to be happening right away, but I do think we're going to get over the alphabet and the linear thinking of the alphabet.
Okay, so I'm facing you, and we're looking in each other's eyes.
Pardon?
And okay, I'm facing you in real life. 20 years in the future, when all this has come to be, and I'm facing you, and you're looking me in the eyes, and I'm looking you in the eyes, what are we doing? Are our brains beaming thoughts directly into each other's brains?
No, you're talking.
Okay.
Audio and visual. Audio,
okay, I'm
visual.
talking, but
it's
that's non-linear, visual. And I'm describing the clouds, and
I'm describing the shamrocks. You don't have a bunch of words
shamrocks.
getting in the way. You don't have a bunch of words getting in the way in order to ingratiate or instantiate the inherited institutions out of history, which was a nightmare of injustice for most of the people. Oh. Maybe we're going to be coming into a world of justice, elementary justice for all, which is something that has never been thought possible. It still isn't. Everything's still assumed on the basis.
Well, no, people have thought that it was possible. In fact, people thinking that it's possible and making endeavors to do so, like people have thought it's possible all the time. That's why there have been revolutions. Is people thinking exactly that that is a doable thing, and now let's do it, right? Overthrow the order, yeah. Now it hasn't worked.
Oh, the rabble.
Right.
1789 and all that.
I'm not going to say nobody ever thought utopia was possible. Sure, there have been tons of
attempts
at utopia.
I had a friend who said that the economic inequality, I forget, it was some phase of America, a situation in America, was worse in 1780. No, it was worse currently in the United States in certain areas than 1789 France. We're not making a lot or necessary or maybe becoming available to us in a way that never has been possible to think about.
I think the UN's. I think I don't know. I'm sure I'm going to mangle this statistic, but it's been oft recited lately that the United Nations development goals for the world, the number of people that have been lifted out of poverty in the past 20 years has far exceeded even the most optimistic expectations. The number of people who have been given the bare essentials of life in countries where they were starving, they've been. The world is doing actually fantastic. There's a recent best-selling book by Steven Pinker called Enlightenment Now.
Yeah, I know of him. Yeah.
Okay,
well, that's great. I'm all for elementary justice for all. My God, of course, that's what I want, including everybody.
So not just the winners. The institutions as they stand in favor of destroying the alphabet to create.
No, that's just
I'm not sure if the alphabet is what stands between us. That's what I'll say. I'm not sure if that's
a throwaway line to get some attention to something radical, like trying to get the store of new human knowledge being stored not in the stacks. Remember stacks? They used to have stacks where you had to go and get a book, wait a half an hour, the book would be delivered, and you could go and that, and it will be stored in systems that are called up, and it will be conveyed in multimedia terms.
Well, listen, you're talking to the cyberspace guy. Yeah. I'm the cyberspace guy. I'm the guy who's accessing the store of human knowledge in multimedia terms every day. That's my shtick.
Yeah, right.
So I'll tell you what's good and bad about that. And what's good about it is that, yes, if I want to sit there and watch a lecture in audio-visual terms and see the presenter talking to me like people who are watching that you and I converse right now or whatever, I can listen to the voices of experts and see their stuff, or I can read a book or read a transcript at my own leisure, and there's benefits to both. But also, cyberspace is so big, there's so much information out there that there's always malicious people filling it with nonsense, or filling it with cult-like thinking, or filling it
within the alphabet's a way in which you can have to repair to get the real story, the real important moorings for the
being
society. It'll be in the alphabet. It will be in the
store of human knowledge is easily tainted, and then everyone who takes it in can be possessed by something bad, and if you put it that way. And right now, in the way that we've structured our internet, it's a free-for-all, and anyone can put anything they want out there. And so you can go and find anything you want.
If it will meet market terms. There may be a large market in the Swahili language.
Right, but I'm not even talking about what costs money. I'm talking about if I type www.something, listen, I can find anything, right? Everything in the world has some form of representation on the internet if you've got the nose to seek it out. Remember what Marshall McLuhan said, that in the electronic age, we all have to become hunters That was one aspect of the tribal mindset, was having the nose, being able to track a fact down like a hunter follows footprints through the forest, right? We all become, like extreme, living in the hunter has ears to listen very acoustically for what's going on and seizes on something, right? Paying fierce attention. And you pay fierce attention to someone speaking, or you pay fierce attention to what you're reading, and you chase down something. That's what it's like to be on the internet. And actually, conscious and chasing down something on purpose. But lots of people run down blind alleys their whole life and end up in some kooky place and some kooky mindset that, in order for there to be some sort of store of human knowledge available to all, it would have to come from some authoritative institution of the sort that you are looking to also, upset.
Yeah, so, we have been depending upon the alphabet and written knowledge in order to contain that store and carry it on, and we're all given over to that, and it probably will stay for quite a while because it's very convenient. But it's been also are we getting to a point where are we going to let the current situation? Is there a hope for there to be a liberation of the whole of the human society rather than a few of the people who manage to get some sort of a situation where they and their family and their friends can do well, but the rest of the world is still in a position of poverty and disaffection and in terms of what's available to them? The unjust nature of the world writ large, which is still roiling the earth.
I have faith that continued dialogue and free speech between people will result in ever-improving conditions for everyone. But that's about as far as I can say on such a grand question. It's rather beyond me to
Okay. Well,
do more than reveal the ideal of peace and love for mankind, right?
And it's such a huge task to get elemental justice and a systems understanding of basically more to Mr. Fuller perhaps than McLuhan, but that we have in our capability, we have what they call haves and have-nots. That's in an ecological order. And the percentage of the world population, given our extended capability of consciousness in technology, the percentage of the world population that can be seen as a have by standards that can be measured has risen.
Yes,
in terms of the capability. We have a capability of providing for everybody in a way where they will be able to be in on the world in a way where they're educated to that. But instead, we put all of the surplus capability into making ever larger atomic weapons and armies that will go and assert the authority in a political system that is built upon a sore throat. No, it's built upon the assumptions that we've come out of history with that are being kicking and screaming, dragged into a new world outside the safety of the womb of history. I'll say it again. History is a nightmare of injustice from which we're attempting to awaken. Will we ever have a just world order for all, like all the 100 trillion cells in a human organism count as part of a system? And
what I like about media ecology,
that we could have elemental justice.
I think there's a sliver of something in my paper which might be relevant to
we can talk about the paper.
This question. And that's the idea of technological determinism. And that is people who don't know what they're looking at and don't understand the technology end up somehow, not knowing what it's going to do or how others are going to use it, or not knowing what it's for. And so education on, right, what you're talking about here when you talk about, the capabilities of doing A or B, weapons or whatever. These are abstract, generalizable things. It takes a great would take great amount of education for a great many people in all of the specifics. There is no the specifics of the engineering behind it, the specifics of how food and agriculture is made and produced and distributed, the specifics of how economies work, the specifics. You need to have lots of specifics because that's what it is. So instead of railing against specifics and as bad necessarily, it's more like there needs to be more interdisciplinary cross communication to allow humans to overcome. In my mind, what my paper is talking about is how computers exist in our world and what role they play in the infrastructure of communication, in entertainment, in
governance,
preventing. Well, yeah, computers give people something to take their mind off of the hard work of going out there and socializing and integrating themselves into the fabric of their society better. If you put off, like wasting time, right? Computers are great ways, and phones are great ways of wasting time and forgoing self-development when they could be great tools of education in all the various things that are necessary to creating a better world, the logistics of handling things on the size and the scale of an entire planet, man, right?
You think one last thing is, do you think that, I think we brought it up on the telephone, that we're going to transcend scarcity ever as an ontologic reality, which is on the table for assigning political and economic decision-making for the operation of what Bucky Fuller called Spaceship Earth? Are we ever going to have a system that is inclusive of all rather than having zero-sum as a given for one to win, somebody else has to lose, which still reigns?
You would have to sell it properly based on the merits of its design to voters who will accept it in light of their knowledge of historical precedents for such attempts.
Right. Okay. Well, that's very good. That's very good. Anyway, it's off on a thing, but I just think it's like leaving the womb or something. History is, we're leaving the womb of history, and it's been the drama of that's been stored in books and ledgers and things, and I think there may be a thing that's coming, is like becoming into a new way of being. It's like it's almost like speciating or something. It happens in the process of speciation. You get a qualitative, not a quantitative change of a 200,000-year system, but you get a qualitative change into something new that introduces into a new way of being in the universe. But that's another thought. Listen, thank you very much. It's so good to talk to you, my brother. I hope it goes really well with the conference.
Anytime.
And we're rolling credits now, and we want to get, excuse me, my throat, all your links, okay? And there it is. It's coming up now, Clinton the Geek. All your contact information is scrolling now, and that's good. And people are doing well to be in touch with this fellow. And I want to be in touch with you about the conference as it gets closer, okay?
Oh, yeah, I'll keep you in the loop. I'm
How
really excited.
long is it now? Then it's through the, about when?
The conference is June 26th through to the June 30th
It's
this
not
year.
really that far ahead. That's not. Okay. There, we got the whole gizmo, the whole links that there are that people can connect with you. Thanks a lot for such a very well-led life. Give my love to Paul Levinson and to all. And have a wonderful conference. And let's, by all means, be in touch with one another, okay?
Oh, absolutely. You got it, man.
Thank you for viewing, one and all in the world out there. We appreciate having talked with Clinton Ignatov, a major young man I think everyone ought to keep an eye on. And all you people at the conference, pay attention to this young man. He's a comer, okay? That's my prediction. Thanks for viewing. We'll be coming back tomorrow. Good talking to you, pal. I think we're out of time. Yeah, we're out. Okay, so now we can stop talking because it'll all be off the air.
Cool.